Merry Christmas and happy holiday season to everyone out there tuning in to the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. It's a quiet, slow Christmas hockey day, 0 games for the next 2 days. But don't worry, we got you covered still with the waiver wire targets on this Christmas special. Let's get right into the guys.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. I am your host, Steele Rodin. Thank you so much for tuning in every single day, Monday through Friday, for the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the Christmas special on December 25th. Thank you, everyone, so much for tuning in for today's episode. We're going to continue doing the waiver wire targets like we do every single Monday, but it's sad news. There's no games on the 25th or the 26th. It's going to be a short fantasy hockey week in your weekly matchups for the next 7 days, as the first 2 days of this week, again, 0 games of hockey on the schedule, Christmas and on Boxing Day. So enjoy the time with the family while you can. And then hockey will be back as soon as Wednesday, December 27th. I'm going to continue doing the waiver wire targets on this Christmas special for everyone out there tuning in. Thank you so much for showing us all that love and support. Continue to hit the subscribe and the follow button. We really do appreciate it. But let's get right into the waiver wire targets for this upcoming week. Remember, it's a little bit of a short schedule. First game doesn't start till December 27th, so there's only 5 days in the weekly matchup, I believe, this upcoming week. But let's get started with this first guy. He is an honorable mention. I mentioned him last Monday, and I got to mention him again because he's been killing it for the Vancouver Canucks. Dakota Joshua, 14% rostered on Yahoo right now, up 8% since I talked about him last Monday. He's got 15 points in 34 games, 7 points in his last 6 games for the Canucks. His shooting percentage is absolutely insane right now. 24.3% in the shooting percentage, 37 blocks, 37 shots, 19 blocks, 105 hits, and 35 penalty minutes. He's an absolute dog in the bottom 6 for the Vancouver Canucks right now. But he's an honorable mention because they only have 1 game this week, and that is against the Philadelphia Flyers, I believe, on Wednesday or Thursday. But I got to show some love to him once again because he's been absolutely killing it the last 5 games for the Vancouver Canucks as they sit atop of their Pacific Division right now, ahead of the Los Angeles Kings and those Vegas Golden Knights. So got to show credit where credit's due because Vancouver's killing it right now. Let's go to one of my favorite players, though, off the waiver wire target or just in general for this team. Personally, my second favorite player on the Seattle Kraken right now, right there behind Jared McCann. But Oliver Bjorkstrand, 43% rostered on Yahoo right now. 11 goals, 27 points in 35 games. He's got 6 points in his last 5 games for the Seattle Kraken. He shoots the puck well. He skates well. He's great on the power play. Has 94 shots this season, so he likes shooting the puck, and he's getting it on net. He's one of the top dogs right now for the Kraken as they continue to find their way in the NHL, their 3rd season in the league. Again, after what they did last year and what they're doing this year, they really need to find their groove. But they're not out of it yet. They're still trying to find their way back to proper form. I don't want to give up on and say they're completely out of it because they're not. They're only 5 or 6 points back of a wild card spot, but they're continuing to get better and better every single game. But personally, I believe losing Andre Burakovsky at the beginning of the season was a major issue for them. He's been a key player. He was a vital player last year in their deep playoff run, or, winning the first 2 or getting past the Colorado Avalanche in the first round, but even making the playoffs last season. He was a vital piece of that, and not having him in the lineup this entire season so far has been a huge part missing for the Seattle Kraken. But they have had some injuries to key players as well. Jaden Schwartz, who was playing pretty good so far for the Seattle Kraken. He's missed 12 games this season. Philip Grubauer, who isn't really playing at his best right now, he's on the IR. Bellemare is on the IR. So they're missing a few guys, key players for their lineup right now. They need other guys to step in. They do trade for Thomas Tatar from the Colorado Avalanche just a couple of days ago, or I believe last week. He's got 4 points in 4 games for the Kraken. So hopefully he can continue striding well with them. Hopefully there's a spark and can form some chemistry on that top line with Matty Beniers and Jared McCann. But like I just said, Matty Beniers especially, he really needs to get going for the Seattle Kraken team. He's only got I believe, 6 goals on the season. Jordan Eberle needs to continue. He needs to get going as well. It's very crucial, especially for those two players, for the Seattle Kraken to be successful this year, because you're getting it out of almost everybody. Vince Dunn, Jared McCann, Oliver Bjorkstrand, a few other guys, but Matty Beniers, from what we saw him do last year, win the Calder Trophy and just really dominate at such a young age in the NHL, especially for a new franchise. He needs to continue doing a lot more than what we've seen so far. And I want to mention just Bjorkstrand because, again, only 2 games. It's a short week this week, only 2 games for the Seattle Kraken. They're taking on the Calgary Flames and the Philadelphia Flyers, but Bjorkstrand has been an absolute beautician for the Kraken this year as they continue to climb up the ladder there, the NHL standings in the Western Conference. We got so much more players to talk about. We're going to talk about one more player before we get to break, and then finish up with 4 players that I need to talk about everyone and let everyone know about that they're on the waiver wire target. But first of all, Martin Jones. We got to talk about Martin Jones and the Toronto Maple Leafs a little bit. 39% rostered on Yahoo right now. He's up 20% from last week. He's been real solid so far when he's started for the Toronto Maple Leafs. 4-1-1 on the season with a .917 save percentage, a 2.79 goals against average, and 1 shutout in those 6 starts that he's played. One of those losses, he came in halfway through the game. An absolute embarrassment against the Buffalo Sabres just a couple of days ago. Ilya Samsonov gets pulled. Martin Jones goes in for him to relieve him of his duties there. But it was an absolute blowout. 9 goals allowed for the Toronto Maple Leafs in that game against the Buffalo Sabres. I believe 5 from Ilya Samsonov and 4 from Martin Jones. But it was just an absolute blowout embarrassment of a game. But other than that, he's 4-1-1 on the season. Like I said, .917 save percentage. And right now, Martin Jones is the guy for the Maple Leafs. And that's kind of sad to say, a little bit weird to say as well, because over the stretch of the last 4 years, Martin Jones hasn't been really the guy for anyone, even if you go to last year with the Seattle Kraken. But yeah, Martin Jones is the guy right now for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And this has been a problem for the Leafs over the last number of years, is their goalie depth. Who do they go to? And right now, that was one of the reasons why they got Martin Jones prior to the season starting. He's been with the Marlies to begin the season, but now, again, with Joseph Woll out, he's been out with a high ankle sprain. Ilya Samsonov has been knocked off his game. Martin Jones is the guy for the Leafs for the time being, at least until Joseph Woll comes back. I believe Joseph Woll is going to be out for at least another 2 weeks minimum. And when you look at Ilya Samsonov, he has absolutely zero confidence in his ability right now. If you look at his game when he's in the crease, whether he's on the bench after that getting pulled in that Sabres game, read his body language and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Absolutely zero confidence. If you just read his body language, you could see it on his face as well. Every time he lets a goal in, it just seems like no matter what he does, everything's getting by him right now. And the stats over the last 5-6 games for him proves it. And as of right now, like I said, Martin Jones is the guy in the blue paint for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Leafs got 3 games this upcoming week. First game against the Ottawa Senators on the 27th. Then they take on the Columbus Blue Jackets once again and the Carolina Hurricanes in a back-to-back for those last 2 games. So expect Martin Jones to get at least 2 starts. If he doesn't, I'd be absolutely surprised. Samsonov will probably go in against the Columbus Blue Jackets or Carolina Hurricanes, but Martin Jones will get 2 starts this week. And at 39% right now on Yahoo, he's going to be the guy. Go get him while you can, because he's been stellar in the last 6 games that he's played so far this season. We're going to talk about a few more players that I really want to talk about. Anders Lee, Colton Parayko, Marco Rossi, and Jase Medical will come up very, very shortly. But thank you so much for making this. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And talking about the Locked On Podcast Network, make sure you go to the YouTube channel, Locked On Sports Today, the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. They're here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus the national shows covering every single league. So go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. And thank you so much for tuning in again. once again, every single day of the week, Monday through Friday. We really do appreciate all that love and support you show us, both Flip and I. So again, happy holidays to everyone. Merry Christmas. We appreciate all that love and support, especially over the holiday season. So thank you so much for that. Continuing on the waiver wire target, though, for this upcoming week, got to go back to a guy who I've kind of ridiculed a lot this season. I drafted him in 2 of my leagues. He's been it seemed like he was an absolute bust, but I got to talk about it, rewind it just a little bit because he's been better the last 2 weeks. Anders Lee currently rostered at 30% on Yahoo. He's been a lot better in the offensive zone the last stretch. Like I said, he's up to 10 goals, 15 points in 33 games. Still not good enough from what we've seen him do, but it's been a tough stretch for him over the last couple of seasons. 5 points in his last 3 games. He's got three-game goal streak right now, but the peripheral stats are still very solid. 21 penalty minutes, 85 shots, 46 hits, 25 blocks. So if he continues doing a lot more like I've seen in the offensive zone, and he's still putting up these peripheral stats, I definitely urge everyone to go get him because he's been a lot better this stretch for the New York Islanders. And this team is legit. I've said it the last couple of years, just like I've said it about the New York Rangers. This team is legit, and I think they can very much make a deep playoff run in that Metropolitan Division and Eastern Conference. You look at what they're doing right now all over with their roster. Brock Nelson is still doing his thing. He's got 30 points at 33 years old. Matthew Barzal is on pace for 90 points, which would be a career high for him, which, again, from a career high back from his rookie year. So absolutely great to see from Matthew Barzal, who had a couple of injuries last year. Breakout season from Noah Dobson, like Flip and I both expected from this guy on the blue line. He's been an absolute stud. He's been so vital and crucial for them, especially being that number one guy on the blue line, especially on the power play and what they've done. Bo Horvat, just an absolute G out there. He's been so vital, such a vital part for their success, especially on the power play and on the penalty kill. The New York Islanders went from the worst power play last year, a measly 5%, to 6th best this year at 24.73%. So it's been an absolute night and day 180 turnaround for special teams from the New York Islanders. Again, last place last year on the power play to 6th best this year on the power play, and then also on the shorthanded penalty kill. 8 short-handed goals for the New York Islanders this season, 2nd best in the NHL. So they're getting it done right now. They get a lot of overtime wins, but they're 2nd in the Metro, right behind the New York Rangers in the standings, and they've been getting it done 6-1-3 in the last 10 games. 3 games this upcoming week in the short week. Penguins twice and the Washington Capitals. So they stay within the Metropolitan this week. Penguins twice and the Washington Capitals once. Going to be 3 good games and crucial games for the New York Islanders, who, again, I believe they are legit. They're going to make a deep playoff run, and they continue to do so with Bo Horvat being a vital part of their success so far this season. I'm going to throw one defenseman out there, only defenseman I have for the waiver wire targets. There's probably a few more out there, like I mentioned last week and Flip mentioned last week, but I haven't talked about him this year yet. Colton Parayko of the St. Louis Blues, rostered at 16% right now. He's not going to dazzle you with his talent or bring elite offensive stats. He'll most likely finish with 30 to 35 points like he usually does every single season. But if you need help with the peripheral statistics, then Parayko is a must-add. 66 shots, 79 blocks, 40 hits. He's got 11 points on the season. Again, he'll chip in offensively every now and again, but if you've got an injured defenseman on the IR or he's out for the next a week or two, Colton Parayko is a good fill-in on the defensive end on that blue line. So I just wanted to mention him because the Blues have been better than I expected this year. You're getting a lot out of Jordan Kyrou now and Robert Thomas after the Craig Berube firing. But Colton Parayko on the blue line, got to show some credit to him because the peripheral stats speak for themselves. So if you need to fill in on the blue line, Colton Parayko is a must-add for this upcoming week. Real quickly, 2 more players left. It's Christmas Day. I got to show some love to the Minnesota Wild out here. Marco Rossi, rostered at 9% on Yahoo right now. 9th overall pick in 2020. And I've been very excited about this player and playing for the Minnesota Wild organization because I absolutely love them out there. But after a depressing 19-game stint last year where he put up 0 goals and 1 point, he is now finally showcasing everybody showcasing his skill on the big stage to everybody. So I love what he's done so far this season. He's getting a lot of opportunity now with a couple of guys on the IR, Ryan Hartman, Matt Zuccarello as well, but 10 goals, 21 points in 32 games, only had the 1 point last year in the 19 games, like I said. So he's been absolutely killing it in the top 6 for the Wild so far. The peripheral stats could be a little bit better. They're a lot lower than I would like to see, but, blocks and hits aren't necessarily his game. But I would love to see him continue to shoot the puck a little bit more. Currently has a 17.2 shooting percentage. So I love that stat, but continue to shoot the puck on net with his shot and his release. I think he can continue putting the puck in the back of the net. 3 games this upcoming week for the Minnesota Wild. They take on the Detroit Red Wings once and the Winnipeg Jets in a back-to-back on Friday, Saturday. So really looking forward to that 3-game schedule for the Minnesota Wild moving forward. I got one last player, Jase Medical, that I really want to talk about. But thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to hit the subscribe, hit the follow, leave a 5-star review. We appreciate all that love and support you show us. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Again, Merry Christmas. Happy holiday season to you and your family out there. And thank you so much for tuning in to the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast this Monday. Starting the week off fresh. Again, 0 games on the 25th and the 26th. 2 days without hockey is a sad, sad news to hear. But it is what it is. It's the holiday season. They got to spend time with their family as well. But they'll be back on the 27th, almost a full schedule. 28 teams in action on December 27th. Final player I got to talk about, Jase Medical, rostered at 23% right now on Yahoo Sports Leagues. I'm not quite sure why this player is rostered so low in Yahoo. I don't know exactly what his percentage is at on ESPN or other fantasy hockey apps out there, but I don't understand. I understand there's something to be desired with the peripheral stats, blocks, hits, and shots. They're obviously a lot lower than you'd like to see. But when a player has 9 goals, 29 points in 35 games, that is very solid, especially for Jase Medical right now, who continues to develop and grow his game every single time he touches the ice surface. He's been an absolute star for the Buffalo Sabres with, we've talked a lot about on this podcast. We've talked a lot about the Buffalo Sabres and the young guys they have. Jase Medical having a breakout season once again, 7 points in his last 5 games. I would like to see him get a little bit more opportunity on the first power play unit. 96% of his points come on even strength. So we'd like to see a little bit more touches come from Mittelstadt, who can really facilitate and pass that puck for the Buffalo Sabres. And he's been really, really solid so far this season. So I got to mention those guys, Jase Medical, Marco Rossi, Colton Parayko, Anders Lee, Martin Jones, Dakota Joshua, and my boy over there, Oliver Bjorkstrand in the Seattle Kraken. Those 7-8 guys are the targets I'm looking at for this upcoming week off the waiver wire target. Again, short week, only 5 days for the weekly matchup. To end the year pretty much. Dang, only 6 more days until 2024. This year has absolutely flown by, but it's been an absolute blast doing this podcast every single day with my boy Flip over there, who will return for tomorrow's episode. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. And again, go to Locked On YouTube. They've launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus the national shows covering every single league you could think of. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. And thank you again so much for tuning in for today's episode with Steele Rodin, your host of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Have a great day. Merry Christmas. Happy holiday season out there. Good luck with your bets, if you have any. And we shall see you back here again tomorrow. Peace.